This is the Ohio AgNet from the Voice You Know with the News You Trust studio, sponsored by BASF. Visit with your local ag retailer about 0% financing on all BASF crop protection, seed treatment, and Zetavo brand soybeans now through March 15th. I'm Ty Higgins. Powered by soy biodiesel, join Dusty later today for the Seed Consultants Winter Agronomy Meeting at the Red Pig Inn in Ottawa. To get a full list of meetings and RSVP, visit seedconsultants.com. Then on Monday, join the Ohio AgNet as we get an update from Ohio Corn and Wheat about the great work being done to represent Ohio's grain farmers at the state and national levels. Speaking of that, I've been in Anaheim, California for the past few days, following along with the American Farm Bureau Convention. Had a chance to talk with Brad Bales. He is Senior Director of State and National Policy after the delegate session here in the Golden State. Once again this year, things that came out of Columbus at the Ohio Farm Bureau annual meeting made their way to American Farm Bureau. What are some of those things that Ohioans brought to the delegate floor today and got passed?
Well, I mean, it's just great to be in Southern California. The weather is fantastic, and between the time change, all the spirited discussion, and all the things that we're able to do, what can I say? I'm spent. But, you know, after last year, we had 13 of 13 policies get across the finish line. This year, we're 10 for 10. So we're setting a very high bar for ourselves. But a few of the things that Ohio really focused on this year, I would say it was definitely in the technology space. We have a history here. 2 years ago at Salt Lake City, we started the very first artificial intelligence policy. And so we built upon that. We wanted to make sure, one, as this ever evolves. I mean, one example that people can see is these images that come out but look extremely real. Making sure that there's some kind of disclaimer, or making sure that people are understanding that this is not actual reality. So those are the kind of things. And then also making sure that we're constantly taking a look at that as a national organization, make sure that it's up to date as much as possible, because that evolves not only by the day, but it's always growing, it's always evolving. So that was critical. The other thing was unmanned aerial vehicles or lightweight aircraft. We've had some instances across the state, especially over the past year and a half, where livestock was getting harassed by these devices. And so what we want to make sure is that there are criminal protections put in place to make sure that our livestock and our herds are taken care of. And so that was another big area. And then also, as everybody's aware, we're losing hundreds of thousands of acres of farmland just in Ohio alone over the past 5 years. So what we really want to do is make sure that we're taking a look at our farmland preservation strategy, and what does that mean as a national group, what is acceptable, what's not when it comes to land use planning. Because as a private rights organization, we don't want to have government telling us what we can or can't do, but at the same time, how do we make sure that we're preserving that farmland and we can be able to continue to do what we do when it comes to our livelihoods and our way of life.
My full conversation with Brad Bales with Ohio Farm Bureau can be found on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel as well. Just search Ohio AgNet. What's the outlook for starter fertilizer in 2026 as far as profitability is concerned? We check in now with Joel Panorwood.
Starter fertilizer makes our crops look good, but does it equate to higher profitability come harvest time? That's the question that Luke Schulte of Beck's Hybrids is tackling in this week's agronomic video series. In this week's edition of the Agronomic Video Series, online at ohioagnet.com. They've got quite a bit of practical farm research to help answer that.
First year corn rotation, multi-location data, the profitability of that 2x2 application as opposed to in-furrow was significantly greater. However, I think it's important to note the products we chose to use within these applications. So in-furrow, we used a simple NPK product, 624-6. Okay, so no biologicals, no carbon sources, no hormones, none of that. And then in our 2x2x2 application, it was straight nitrogen. So I think it's important to note that middle application, one of the reasons it was so much more profitable is the fact that we didn't add any additional investment. We've simply applied 60 pounds of our total season-long nitrogen with the planter and then subtracted that 60 units from our site dress application. And then also that far left treatment, one of the reasons as to why it was so inconsistent or not profitable is the fact that we didn't apply any nitrogen till V3. We didn't apply any dry. We didn't apply any weed and feed. So we know that one of the most imperative things to getting corn off to the right start is early season accessible nitrogen.
The full in-depth analysis and more data talking about adjusting starter fertilizer to be more profitable in 2026, online at ohioagnet.com. It's in the video section. I'm Joel Norwood reporting.
Let's check the forecast now, brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance, online at seedconsultants.com. Here's Ryan Martin.
Mild temperatures are gone. Vamoose out of here. And probably not coming back for the rest of this month. But nearby, it's cold. Strong north winds are coming across the Great Lakes. That's going to create lake effect cloud cover and some lake effect snow. Now, I think in the usual lake effect snow areas, we can see anywhere from 1 to 4, maybe 5 inches, particularly in northeast Ohio. The rest of the state, though, I do think looking at a lot of clouds, and I won't rule out snowflakes of some kind, not just the next couple of days, but all the way through the weekend. We've got a clipper or two coming through late this weekend and into early next week. Reinforcing shot of cold air coming with those. Below normal temperatures all of next week. Next week, I think, is a little less active on precipitation, but overall, we're not going to feel like we're not in winter probably until we get into February. I'm Ryan Martin.
Will the farm economy stabilize in 2026? We find out more from Joe Everett.
Agricultural economists are expecting the U.S. farm economy to stabilize in 2026, though a full recovery still appears unlikely. While the recent slide may be slowing, high input costs and softer demand continue to pressure farm margins, especially for row crop producers. Recent economist surveys showing improving sentiment, with 54% saying conditions are better than just a month ago. Compared to last year, opinions are mixed. 42% say conditions are worse, while 33% believe the economy has improved. Looking ahead, expectations remain cautious. About 46% of economists think conditions will stay about the same over the next year. 38% expect improvement, and only 15% anticipate further decline. Overall, economists say the farm economy may be finding its footing, but meaningful recovery will likely depend on lower input costs or stronger commodity demand. For the Ohio AgNet, I'm Joe Everett reporting.
Thank you, Joe. The Ohio AgNet continues next.
Attention construction pros. Purple Wave Auction brings quality equipment to your fingertips. Join our bi-weekly online auctions featuring dozers, excavators, loaders, and more. We provide detailed listings, photos, and seller contact info. Inspect online or in person. With our no reserve policy, every item sells to the highest bidder. Visit purplewave.com today and see why informed builders choose Purple Wave. Transparent processes, real deals. Your next great purchase awaits. purplewave.com.
Hey pork producers! The 2026 Ohio Pork Congress is almost here. It all happens in Lima, Ohio on February 3rd and 4th at the Veterans Memorial Convention Center. You'll get the latest on swine health, facility management, economics, product innovation, and more. And don't forget about the expanded Spanish language breakout sessions. All this with over 60 trade show exhibitors to visit. So go to ohioporkcongress.org today to get more information and early registration discounts. We'll see you in Lima.
There are going to be some better beverage options in the lunch line for school kids across the country. Joel Norwood has today's featured audio.
It's been an exciting time lately for dairy producers out there with regard to some legislation, some policy, and some perspective with regard to how milk is being perceived and possibly utilized down the road. And joining us to talk about that, Scott Higgins, CEO of the Ohio Dairy Producers Association, who has been pretty busy with quite a bit of news happening from the national side and more lately. So let's start there on the Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act. Scott, tell us all about that.
Well, first of all, let's start with the dairy farmers and the work that they've done over the last 50, 60 years around the science behind milk. You know, one of the things a lot of people don't realize is that the dairy farmers themselves invest in a checkoff program. And that program has invested in the science, decades of research that has proven and demonstrated the value of milk, the nutrient components of milk, and how important it is for both youth and adults in their diets. And so what's been exciting for us in the dairy industry is to see the investment of the dairy farmers become the central focus of the negotiations and discussions, both with our legislative community as well as the health professional community. So dairy farmers' investment in checkoff through research has set the framework, has set the stage for us to be able to inform legislators and others who made the Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act possible.
Let's talk about some specifics. What all does that act contain, and what does it mean not only for those consuming milk in schools and more, but as you were just mentioned there, the dairy farmer? How does that impact them?
Yeah, so since 2012, there were a set of dietary guidelines that were instituted that required schools to only be allowed to use 1% and skim milk in schools, in the school meal program. And since the dietary guidelines set the stage for the National School Lunch Program, USDA had to abide by that. And then they implemented the rules on what children had access to in schools as far as milk. So what we experienced is milk consumption began to decline. And the reason for that is because parents and children, through their home purchases at retail, have been increasingly purchasing more whole milk, more 2% milk, and less 1% and skim. In fact, just a quick statistic, about 80% of all retail sales of milk is whole milk and 2%. Only 5% of all retail sales is skim milk. So what this really says is parents and children are already choosing at home, and they didn't have access to that same milk in school. So what the Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act does is it reinstates the permission, the allowing us to be able to offer children whole and 2% milk in schools. Now that the House and the Senate has so aggressively supported that, it's waiting on the president's signature right now. But once that's signed, USDA will begin to take action on that and administer it and make it and transform the New Look at School Lunch Program into to modify to match up with the act and the order that is now being administered. And then it will be up to the schools to purchase, up to the schools to make a decision on, are they going to make whole milk and 2% milk available in schools? So we're really leaning heavily now on our processing community to step up and find ways to make sure that they can offer what children want access to in schools.
Implementation lies ahead, but we're at an interesting and exciting time for some important pieces of the dairy puzzle, as Scott Higgins, CEO of the Ohio Dairy Producers Association, is joining us to talking about not only the Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act, but also the recently updated dietary guidelines for Americans. Scott, thank you so much for being here with us today, as always.
Thank you for having me, Joel.
Coming up after this as the Ohio AgNet continues, market prices and analysis.
It's time for the Morton Buildings Building Value Days sales event running now through the end of February. Morton buildings are built stronger, last longer, and look better. So if you're planning for a garage, farm shop, stall barn, a storage building for your RV, boat, or collectibles, or anything in between, act now. Our buildings are built to last, but these savings won't. Visit MortonBuildings.com or contact your local Morton office to take advantage of current savings on new buildings. Certain restrictions may apply. Offer valid only on select new building orders placed between January 5th and February 28th, 2026.
Welcome back to the Ohio AgNet. I'm Ty Higgins. Today's market analysis brought to you by the Louis Dreyfus Company. Excited to be building the newest state-of-the-art soybean crush facility in Upper Sandusky. Call 574-566-2113 for information on soybean marketing to LDC. Here's Ryan Martin.
Grain markets red on a Tuesday, day two after the USDA data dump that did not go so well overall. Yesterday we saw corn down anywhere from 1 to 5, beans down at 9 to 10.5. Soybean meal was lower. Bean oil was the bright spot. Up there, some chatter about RVOs. We'll see whether that leads to anything. Wheat market was down a penny or two in Chicago, but down 6 to 7 in Kansas City. I don't have much for you here as we wrap up this day. It was all about follow through from the USDA report. I don't know when this gets fixed, to be honest with you, and the market is definitely in recoil mode based on the data that we got. Flash reported sales. We need a lot more of those to get this market to kind of shake off the nearby rust, but we're also working now with the next information that really is important coming out probably not until the World Outlook Board Forum late February, where they take another stab at acreage next year. I'm Ryan Martin.
This check of markets on the Ohio AgNet brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Little higher overnight for the corn, with March up a penny and a quarter at $4.21. May 4.28 3/4 up by a cent. Soybeans for January no change overnight, 10.23 1/4. The March picking up 3.5 at 10.42 1/4. Wheat for July down a half cent at 5.34, and September wheat 5.48 1/2. That's off by a half penny. Live cattle for February 237.25 up by $2 yesterday. The April 290 higher, closing at 238.97. Feeder cattle for March 595 to the good after Tuesday's trade, closing at 362.12. April 360.60 up by 6.15. Lean hogs for February 20 cents higher, closing yesterday at 84.62, and April lean hogs 91.25 and up by a $0.50. For the Ohio AgNet, I'm Ty Higgins reporting. We'll see you down the road.